Welcome back to the Menopause Coach Podcast with me, your host, as always, Adele Johnston, the Menopause Coach and your educator for this next 20 or 30 minutes or so that we are together. Now, as always, these episodes are recorded for your entertainment, not in place of any medical interventions. And, a lot of this is brought to you from an evidence-based perspective. So by all means, use this to inform, use this to guide, but never to advise yourself on any medical interventions. You must always speak with your own medical team. And if in doubt, always reach out to them. We are here today for this episode, which is about why you feel out of breath when you're lifting weights in menopause. Now, this is something that I know so many of us struggle with, and I had my own example of this today. I will share the story about that. I'm going to share with you why it's happening, what's going on, and what you can do to help yourself. So let's jump into this episode together. Today I want to talk about something that happened to me. And for many of us, I know this happens and we just maybe brush it off as a bit of anxiety. I was speaking with another woman about this today, and it's exactly what she said to me she thought it was. Honestly, it massively caught me off guard when it happened, but knowing what it was really helped me to then look at what tools do I have to manage what is happening. So I was doing a leg session today with my PT, not a leg session that is unknown to any of us, right? Him and I, we know this leg session. We've been doing this leg routine for a long time. It's nothing new. And these exercises are not new exercises to me. I've been training for decades, done these many times before and never had this happen. But from the very first set, I felt like something was just off. Yeah, and there's many reasons that can happen. But every single exercise that I did, I was struggling with my breathing. It's happened before on many different compound or heavy type of lifting. So it wasn't for me that I just felt a little bit out of breath. I mean, I couldn't properly catch my breath. My recovery between sets felt really different. And there were times where I was like, I'm too hot, I'm getting a bit anxious about this. And it felt almost like a bit of hyperventilating. So I genuinely said to him, we need to open a window so that I can put my head out there and just get some fresh air, some oxygen. It definitely felt like my body was lacking that. And for many of you, I'm sure this will maybe ring some bells for you that you'll think, actually, this is what's been happening to me. But what really stood out for me in all of this was that I've never experienced the severity of this like that before. I have recognised that certain factors will be playing a role in this. I have been under a bit more pressure as an entrepreneur with multiple business income streams and multiple businesses that I operate. That's going to happen. My girls are 15. They're going through their exams at school right now, so the home dynamics are a bit different. We've just been having some renovation works done on the house. And to top it all off, I myself have had some dental work done, and I now have a lower train track brace on the lower part of my teeth. So my mouth is sore and I have ulcers as a point of that. For those of you listening outside of the UK, please do not panic. I know for my US friends, these are called canker sores. So the canker sores in my mouth, not ulcers like stomach ulcers, are really painful right now. So there has been some heightened stress and more pressure, more decisions in the business. One of my businesses has just made a massive decision and change. And it will absolutely, I know, in my heart of heart, pay off for what we're looking to do and to invest in other women, but it holds quite a lot of risk. So there are other factors in this. It's not that my perimenopause hormones have just decided that things need to be more crazy for me. Maybe they have. But it really stood out for me that the experience that I was going through during that session was definitely being aggravated by the weightlifting. What did help in that moment for me was claiming and verbalizing. So saying to Scott, my PT, I'm struggling to breathe. I feel like I'm lacking oxygen right now. I needed longer rest periods, and that just had to be. I wasn't going to push through until I was ready to go again. The second thing I did was recognize that being intentional then with my breathing was really important. because in those moments it's easy for us to get caught up in that hyperventilating state. So being a trauma-informed breathwork facilitator, I literally went straight into action on what breath type do I need to do in this moment. And the biggest piece of advice that I can give from one woman to another right now, bearing in mind this is not medical advice for you, so please, if you are experiencing anything out of the ordinary for yourself, always link in with your medical team to investigate it. Your health is far too important, and you are definitely never an inconvenience to those that are trained to help you. But I recognized in that moment for me that where I was struggling to take a breath, the natural human reaction to that is to try and take short, shallow breaths. And that adds to the hyperventilating state. Instead, bringing the breath in through the nose at a point where that feels safe to do so is the best tool in your toolbox. So when we're struggling to breathe, we naturally will try and mouth breathe because we're trying to create as much of an income of that oxygen. We're kind of breathing in through the mouth to try and bring in. But actually, what we're doing in that state is pushing ourselves away from being in a relaxed parasympathetic nervous system state into that reactive nervous system state. So my biggest piece of guidance on this for you, if you are someone who recognizes that this is like your own story, is to recognize where your breath is coming from. Okay, in that rest zone moment, I recognized that I was very much mouth breathing. So holding myself like I call it a pogo stick, but as straight as I could stand in that moment, and taking a big deep breath in through my nose, as deep as I possibly could, and then allowing those breaths to just out of my mouth, and then breathing in again through the nose, and then releasing the breath a little bit slower on the second out, and then again in through the nose, and even slower again on the third out. It is phenomenal what 3 intentional breaths like that can do in a state of overwhelm like that. And even the third thing, fresh air on my face. You can never underestimate that. As soon as we'd finished a set and I'd said to Scott, I feel like if I can get fresh air on my face, I'm going to be better. That's exactly what we did. And within a matter of moments, I was like, I'm okay, I'm good. So again, this left me thinking about how many times and how many women would just push through. How many women would actually bring that nervous system dysregulation into a real big sense of anxiety-riven state. And that for me was a real big aha moment of, we need to do an episode on this. Okay, I want to look at what's actually going on in the body in these states, because you might recognize this in yourself, whether you are someone who trains weights and you find lifting can be challenging like I did today, or whether you're someone who is a runner, a kickboxer, any type of activity that lifts your heart rate and can potentially cause this or have this trigger effect of I can't breathe properly, then I want to cover this for you. Because you may have felt like this before, especially if you are in your 40s, 50s and beyond right now, then this episode is definitely for you. Even if you haven't recognized this in yourself right now, at least you are now armed and ready for if it does. Because you're not just imagining that these things happen. They do show up, okay? Feeling suddenly, oh, that was really, really difficult for me. The weights are not too heavy. The exercises, the movements, the range of movement that you have hasn't really changed. And you think, that was really tough. I couldn't catch a breath. Or I feel like I'm overheating. Getting breathless much faster than you used to is, again, something that I would always state here. Keep an eye on it. Okay, this is all part of your health is your wealth, and we never want to undermine that at all. But actually in menopause, it's quite common that this can happen. And for many women, especially a woman that I spoke to about this today, she'd said that this was one of her very first perimenopause symptoms, that she became very breathless when working out. And then that led to anxiety as a ripple or a roll-on effect of that. When we struggle to recover a bit quicker, so where we've maybe always had that 30-second or 60-second rest between sets or reps, you might recognize that actually you're needing longer. And actually that level of panic in your breathing can exacerbate how you're then feeling. So I want to cover something really important with you. In most cases, this is not because your oxygen levels are dangerously low. And if you wear a tracking device of any kind that monitors all of that for you, you're going to be able to see that that is true, okay? That your oxygen levels are not dangerously low, but that you feel like they are. And it's about how your body is then regulating your breathing and using your oxygen. That can change during menopause. So I want to cover this because it's so important that we know what's actually happening. When we know what's happening, we are armed with knowledge and we then have empowered choice from that moment. So let's break this down into a really simple evidence-based way to approach it. I want to look at through some core elements. One of them obviously being hormones, because we know that our hormones affect our breathing and our body's stress response. Estrogen isn't just about reproduction, as we've covered in many episodes now. Yeah, we're over 200 episodes in, and we talk about this very frequently. But it does play a real big role in your brain, and it plays a real big role in your nervous system, and even in how you breathe. Estrogen, as it declines through perimenopause and into our postmenopause state, your breathing control becomes a lot more sensitive. Okay, as that hormone starts to reduce, your breathing control changes. Your response to stress becomes even more reactive, and your tolerance for carbon dioxide shifts. These are all facts, and it's not something that we're ever taught or told about. So of course, when something like today happens, and for those of us that maybe don't understand what's happening, it can be so really bloody scary. But I held my cool because I knew this was not a medical issue or a medical emergency for me. This was my body telling me, Adele, menopause is kicking your ass today. And I went, it really is, isn't it? But we're not stopping this workout. Instead, we're going to adjust our breathing. We're going to take some nice cool fresh air on our face, and we're going to have a slightly longer rest period in between our sets. And that's just what was needed. But the research shows us that actually our sex hormones influence our respiratory control and how we respond to changes in breathing. So if you do want to read that, click the notes. You'll be able to find the DOI link to that paper in there and linking it into menopause, because during menopause, your system can become more easily, I say triggered, because it's such a good word for how it, especially, it's triggered under that physical stress like exercise gives with us. It's a good point to note as well when we talk about this, when the body becomes triggered. Many times we will actually respond to, I'm not stressed, I feel fine, but actually there's multiple levels and layers of stress. Yeah, there's the I feel stress, and there's the stress on the body. This is not weakness, and I share this very openly and honestly in a very authentic way. I have been feeling stress and I have been under stress. So of course that will have played a massive role in the outcome of today's training. But also when we do any exercise that, like, for example, today it was leg day. Legs are our biggest muscle groups. It's the hardest exercise on your workouts to do. So it was kind of like we're piling everything on here. And actually the oxidative stress that causes on our cells is quite vast. So my body was under physical stress when I was exercising today. And what likely happened and what I likely experienced was a little bit of that hyperventilation. So let's cover what this is. When I reflected around my training session today, and I was doing it real time, but also after I left, what I was feeling was that sense of I just couldn't get enough air, oxygen into my body. I couldn't breathe properly. I wasn't feeling relaxed. My heart rate was up, and it was most likely that hyperventilation. And this is really misunderstood, especially in menopause, because it's not that you don't have enough oxygen in your body. Okay, it's that you're breathing in a way that drops your carbon dioxide too low at times. If you think about the shallow breathing, we're maybe not really controlling the breath because we're in a little bit of a stress response state. We're triggered. There's that word again, because it sums everything up. And that creates this kind of lightheadedness, the tightness in the chest, the almost like panicky feeling that we have where it's like, I'm not getting enough air. The oxygen in the body is fine, but we're just not breathing well. And this is so well recognized in breathing physiology. Again, there's papers on this. So again, if you like to go deeper into this, definitely go do that. But we do not have enough time to cover that in this episode. But bringing this to light for you is hopefully helping you see that actually this is way more common than we realize. And why the weight training then triggered this for me was really important, because if I was anyone else without this knowledge and understanding, it would have really sent me into an anxiety response. Instead, I was like, this is interesting, because the strength training, very beautiful for my health and well-being in menopause, but it was actually the perfect storm today for me personally. And when I think of it, because our strength training or weight-bearing exercise like that, it involves things like consistently bracing the core. So I'm holding tense and I'm bracing my core muscle groups, not just their abdominals. Sometimes you hold your breath. Now, I recognize for me, I actually do this quite a lot. And this is something that I have spoken to my personal trainer about, because when I'm holding my breath, when I'm doing those compound movements, I get dizzy. Of course I do. And then short, intense bursts of effort like that, where you are maybe controlling the movement as you come down in that time under tension, and then you're maybe bursting back up again to, and I'm thinking about things like when we do lunges or when we're doing squats, we're going down quite slowly and then we're really pushing the muscles when we push that weight up again. So what likely happened this morning for me was I may have been holding my breath during some of those movements. I was then trying to recover as quickly as I have done in the past, and today that just was not going to be the case. My breathing then started to speed up because my body's like, ooh, we're not getting enough air. And I tipped into that over-breathing state where instead of having nice controlled in through my nose, out through my mouth, I was mouth breathing and taking very short, shallow ins and outs. And that pattern, again, is very recognized in resistance training research. This isn't just me saying, I think this is what happened. The evidence, the research that I know and that I've read, and also understanding my own body, I knew in that moment it was not a medical emergency or a medical problem. It was a reaction, this like perfect storm effect of I've had heightened stress, I've had a lot going on, I definitely have had a shift in my own menopause journey. My hormones feel like they've shifted again. And I then went into a very oxidative stress trigger with the weight-bearing movements. It's not a bad thing, but recognizing what my body needed during that workout was the beautiful loving gold, right? Recognizing I needed to have longer rest periods. Take more drinks and sips of my water. Be in the fresh air when we don't normally need to do that. So it's super important that you check in with yourself in these moments and ask, what do I need to feel better? Now, why it felt harder than usual for me, and potentially for yourself as well, if this is a space that you are currently recognizing for yourself, it's kind of like, well, why did it feel so intense today? And I will never know the true answer to it for me, but I will know potentials, and that's important. I want to cover a couple of areas that is really, dominant within it. And what I discussed with my PT Scott about this as well in the moment was that where menopause comes in to this as well. Okay. So it's not just that I was having a hard workout. It was actually that the workout wouldn't have actually felt that difficult if my breathing, my air in to my body was adequate and optimal. So we know that there's a thing called VO2 max, and this is your ability to use oxygen. So whilst your body has oxygen, your VO2 max is what your body relies on for you to be able to use that oxygen. And your VO2 max is impacted. I mean, of course it is, right? Why would it not be? In menopause, especially when we are aging. And this decline in both aging and also in menopause can accelerate in our midlife, in menopause. So it almost speeds it up a little bit. It's like if we didn't have menopause, yes, VO2 max would change very minimally, but it changes. But when we add into that the reduction in our key sex hormones as women, estrogen in particular, estradiol, then VO2 max, the body's ability to utilize optimally your oxygen stores and your oxygen levels, is a bit impacted. So that is where you fatigue a bit faster when you're thinking, this isn't the heaviest I've lifted, or this isn't the worst I've felt, but actually I'm really struggling right now. Your recovery can take longer. And this is a well-known fact for menopausal women in any sport. We can need and require a lot longer recovery periods. And your recovery periods are not going to be the same every time. So again, today I gifted myself more time to recover because I needed that. It wasn't a laziness response. It was my body needs this from me right now. I can't continue to push it beyond its limits. And the effort will feel a lot harder than it maybe did. Now, I could go back in and do this workout in a few days' time and not have the same response. So it's about being present in your body in the moment and knowing that there are going to be things that will help you. Tools in your toolbox. I've talked about the breathing technique already. Now, where there were maybe hidden contributors for me and maybe for you as you listen to this, and this is where we layer in real life, right? The adulting of life. But sleep disruption can be very common in menopause as we know it. Where we've maybe had disruption to our sleep over time, think of it as we're sitting inside a space where we have everything we need. And over time, there are tiny little holes that start to arrive, and we're leaking out some of the things that we really need, like estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, but also our sleep ability, optimizing that changes. Stress levels, like I've suggested and I've explained, I've been under heightened stress in many ways. My physical body, through going through a bit of orthodontic treatment. We've had a lot going on. I've had a lot going on. The emotional load, the mental load has been quite vast recently. Every week in the month of March, I travelled to events and speaking conferences that I was booked as keynote speaker, panel guest for. And I absolutely love doing them. But travel takes it out of my body. I have to accept what I'm doing with very mindful yeses or not right nows, because I do have a knock-on effect when I travel. It doesn't even have to be long haul. Short distance travel for me does have an impact. So it's never ever taken lightly when I say, yes, I'll do this one, because I have to plan around it. Hormonal fluctuations for me right now are happening, and that could be a knock-on effect of everything else right now as well. I did miss a couple of days of applying my hormone replacement therapy, and again, we've been going through some renovations in the house, so a lot of my products were packed away, and it was just laziness / easiness to say, I'll just pop it on tomorrow. I'll not bother today. So again, these all have ripple effects. And then for me, I possibly have a bit of low iron right now, and I recognise that in how I'm feeling. I recognise that in certain signs. So again, for me, it's important that I actually bring an iron supplement in. Normally, I would always opt for food sources, but I'm going to bring a supplement in. And the reason for that is because with the braces, the train track braces on the lower part of my teeth, I'm really affected with how I eat at the moment. So I can't chew properly, my teeth are sore, my mouth is full of ulcers, canker sores. So at this moment, it's a little bit miserable. So having a nice bloody steak right now is not an option for me. And actually, getting a lot of broccoli stuck in my retainers and my train track lines, no. So I'm going to supplement for now, and then when I'm able to, I will look at my food sources that are going to work with me. And it's knowing right now that this is all through choice, okay? I want you to feel empowered in your choice, because your system is much more likely to tip into that breathlessness and that overwhelmed state when all of these things are present. And right now, for me personally, it's just been the perfect storm, and that is why this has happened. So when I look back at the session from this morning, it makes complete sense to me why this happened. I was slowing my breathing, and that helped. So taking that deep breath in through the nose and allowing the breath to then release through the mouth Really important. We don't want to be shallow breathing, and we certainly don't want to be shallow mouth breathing. It will make it worse for you. So reminding yourself to bring that breath in through the nose and allow that breath to release through the mouth. Being really conscious, with my breath helped. Bringing the focus to the breath. How am I breathing right now? What do I need right now? And then even just the fresh air on my face, call it placebo, it was effective. Having that happen, instantly cooling the body's thermostat, instantly telling the brain that you are okay, that oxygen is here. It is a bit of a psychological placebo effect, but it helps. And what I needed in that moment was not a little mini oxygen tank. I didn't need more oxygen as much as it felt that way. I needed to regulate my breathing. So in doing so, it massively helped. So I want to just share with you at this point as we wrap this one up today. If you've ever experienced anything like this, but with that you've also had chest pain, or you've had any bout of fainting, or you've been so breathless that it does not settle, then please get that checked. Okay? That's really important. Many women experience things like this, and whilst not all of them will be a medical situation, some of them may be. So it's important that you know your body and you do what is needed for you. And like I said already at the start of this episode, this is not a medical replacement for guidance. Here's what actually makes a difference in these situations, and I'm going to leave this with you. Number one, controlling your breathing. I want you to think about that slow inhale through the nose, that longer, slower exhale through the mouth. The exhale is what calms your system and restores that balance in your breathing. So when you're breathing in, it's important to also allow the out breath to flow for nice and long breaths. Do not rush your recovery. That's number two. Give yourself permission to pause. This isn't a race. Okay? Let your breathing settle properly between your sets. Do not try and push through, or that panicky feeling is going to exasperate. So, allow your recovery. Number three is adjust how you're lifting. Instead of holding your breath, you want to exhale on the effort. Okay, this can make a huge difference to how your body then is responding. So if you're recognizing that you're holding your breath when you're pushing the effort, I want you to exhale the breath on the effort. Number four, building your aerobic base up. This is really important. If you recognize that actually this is happening more than not, then consider, number one, raising that with your medical system and team for support. And number two, consider some light-based walking. Your steps for health every day are vital for health. And number five, think about the bigger picture, or even more so look at the bigger picture. Okay, if this keeps happening often, then check your iron levels. Look at your sleep routine and your hygiene with that, and consider that this might not just be your menopause hormone-related outputs. This might actually be linked to a greater impact of stress. And for many of us, especially as women, we never like to admit when we're stressed, because it almost brings this connotation attached to it that we are not coping, that we are weak. But I promise you, from one woman that is in a stressed response state right now to another, it does not make me weak, and it does not make you weak. It makes us strong. It makes us powerful to be able to say, I am feeling stressed right now. And I've shared that with many people. I've had a lot going on. Emotional load has been a lot. Okay, so it's recognizing that and being able to look at, this isn't failure. It's my body recognizing that I need more rest time. So that's exactly what I'm building in. So if you've ever had any of these moments, it's so important to know that you are not alone, first and foremost. And also, when you maybe feel like you can't breathe properly, or when it feels a little bit harder than it normally does, then you're not losing your fitness. That's not part of it. And you're certainly not imagining what's happening. But it's about the changes that potentially are happening and becoming this incredibly adaptable woman in how you are responding. And I will say this with the most love in my heart. This isn't about pushing harder. It's actually about listening to what you need and adjusting in the moments. Just because you've always done something one way doesn't mean that every day it will feel like you can do it that way. So if this has been an episode that's really resonated with you, then I do encourage you to go share it with someone who you feel really needs to hear it. Because so many women are experiencing these types of impacts and not talking about it. And of course, it goes without saying, if you want more conversations on any topics, then I am here for you and for our podcast community. We are growing daily, which is beautiful to see. We are in over 65 different countries. We have over 300,000 of you that listen. I would love to keep that community beautifully alive and growing further. We are a top 10 podcast, ladies, which is phenomenal. So keep that going. This is what helps me bring you more episodes. We keep this as ad-free as possible for you. We do not charge anything for any of these episodes like some people will do in different ways. And I deliberately do that because I want to make this a space where you get the information and the knowledge that is evidence-based and nice and easy to absorb and listen to. So the only thing that I ever ask at the end of this episode from me to you, please do go share this with one other person and let them know that we are here for them. And if you want any specific topics or episodes covered, then please do email support@AdeleJohnstonCoaching.com and the team will pick that up and we will look at it. Sending so much love. If this has been a space that you are recognising this has happened to you, then hopefully this episode has helped to settle what you've been experiencing. And from one woman who experienced it today to another who's listening to this right now, we are not broken. We simply just need to adapt and give our body more rest, and we will come back stronger. Until this next episode arrives, be beautifully you.